Good morning. This is Daybreak on Citizen Television. Thank you for your time and company. We do apologize for the technical glitch, but nonetheless, the business continues here on the broadcast. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. This morning we'll be speaking to the Senator of the County of Kakamega, Dr. Bone Khalwale, who is with us in studio. Nominated Member of Parliament is with us, John Mbadi. Thank you for your time as well. And the Chair of the Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly, who will be giving us here the accounts as to what transpired yesterday in Parliament. But let's begin with a look at the front pages of the publications. The Daily Nation says, reveal the cooking oil and rice tycoons. Trade CS Moses Kuria yesterday tabled a list of 11 companies contracted by the Kenya National Trading Corporation to import various commodities in a plan to lower food prices. 4 of them, which bagged 6.85 billion Kenya shillings in the deal, are linked to city businesswoman Mary Wambui, who is the chairperson of the board of the Communications Authority of Kenya. That story is further highlighted on pages number 6 and 7 of the publication. The companies linked to her also highlighted on the front page. And also the front page has the financial performance of KNTC over the past financial years in terms of the sales turnover, the total recurrent revenue, the operating expenses and the net income. Beneath that, also on the front page, food prices fares to go up as MPs vote to increase fuel costs. This is following the increment from 8 to 16% in the finance bill. The ruling Kenya Kwanza coalition and MPs yesterday used, says the paper, their numerical strength to defeat a spirited opposition by Azimio lawmakers who voted to reject the increment. We'll be discussing that and much more. The account of the whistleblower in NHIF also on the back end of the paper, and the Odwol impeachment at the Senate. 1 million chair for his office, MCAs now tell the Senate. On the front page of the Standard newspaper, Ruto voting machine, says the paper on the front page. Expected showdown in Parliament was neutered by Kenya Kwanza's numerical strength in terms of numbers in the finance bill, ignoring popular proposals that would have shielded Kenyans from the high cost of living. That's on page number 6 of the paper. Thrills parties, action-packed WRC Safari Rally kicks off, and President William Ruto yesterday was also in attendance. Kinjuri's new plan to change composition of Parliament. You can read that on page number 8. At the top end of the paper, it can be revealed now, and a court has been told, that Oscar Sudi quit school at class 7. That's on page number 13. The Kenya Association of Manufacturers scam returns donor funds after expose on business page number 25. And Odwol pushed for 18 million Kenya shillings for own comfort. That's on national page number 4 of the publication. This and much more is going to be our subject of discussion here on the broadcast. On my immediate right is the Senator of the County of Kakamega, Dr. Bone Khalwale. Good morning.
Morning, my brother.
Thank you for your time, Daktari. Yep. At the center is nominated lawmaker John Mbadi. Thank you for your time, Honorable. Your time is appreciated. And the Chair, National Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly, and Molo lawmaker Kimani Kuria is with us in studio. Thank you for your time, gentlemen. It's all appreciated. Let's begin with a look at the front pages of the publication, and here the Daily Nation says, coming to you first, before we go to the finance bill and the events in Parliament yesterday, the cooking oil and rice tycoons and how companies owned by the current chair of the Communications Authority of Kenya Board, Mary Wambui, was awarded thrice, and companies linked to her by the Kenya National Trading Corporation in a deal that was meant to bring in commodities to lower the cost of living in the country following the first cabinet approval. First to you, Chairperson, Honorable Kimani Kuria, what's your account of this? Doesn't this reveal unfairness in the bidding process? Yet there were many companies that had placed their bid to get the award.
Thank you very much, Ayub, and good morning to everyone who is watching us this morning. I'm not the best place to comment on this because I'm not privy to information about these particular transactions. However, I know that there's a procurement process that is followed, and maybe the fact that someone did support government or is a chairperson of a particular body doesn't mean that they cannot do business with government, as long as the transactions that they do are above board, that the prices are fair, that the prices are market prices. So there's nothing that really stops anybody from doing business with government, as long as it's legitimate business. And again, I first said that I'm not privy to more information about this. So I'm really believing that the due process was particularly followed, and whether the companies are owned by whoever owns them, as long as they're done at the correct prices and the process above board, then there wouldn't be anything fishy about it.
Mm-hmm. And despite the CS yesterday telling the Senate that the due process was followed, documenting oppositions clearly show how companies that share the same PO box, how proxies were used in getting the award from the Kenya National Trading Corporation, which brought to the fore, Honorable Member, before you go to the Finance Bill and Events in Parliament, which brought to the fore the glaring inconsistencies between what the CS said and what was actually on the paper that he presented before the Senate when he was questioned yesterday. Doesn't that bring unfairness in the bidding process again?
Again, there's nothing that would stop any person from doing any particular business with government, and if, again, the due process was followed. And the good thing is that our Constitution is very clear on the Public Finance Management Act, and there are several bodies, including the oversight bodies in Parliament, both at the Senate and the National Assembly, that will be able to verify this. So if it's a scandal, then it's going to see the light of day.
Thank you. Honorable John Mbadi, what do you make of this?
For me, there is nothing new. This is Kenya. This is what we have been witnessing over the years. To be fair to the current regime, it is not starting with this regime in terms of those who fund political activities before elections get favored in government contracts and are the first ones to cause scandals. It has happened previously. It happened during Moi regime. It happened during Kibaki regime. It happened during Uhuru regime. And it is now happening under the watch of Ruto. And I think what we need to ask ourselves as Kenyans is, why can't we stop these things? And there is always a pattern. Yeah. Wamboi is not new. It's not a new name. She actually was one of the Jubilee members of the foundation and supported Uhuru Kenyatta's and William Ruto's re-election in 2017, hugely. Amounts I may not know, but from reports is that she did it hugely. Now she is again caught in this circus, again after funding William Ruto. And I will tell you that there was no process. I would be really surprised if a due process is determined to have been followed. From what I've just read and what I've heard around is that even Kuria could not, the CS Kuria could not really explain how the 11 farms were picked. The pre-qualification was on about 22 farms. Even that pre-qualification alone, you would ask how was it done. But picking 11, what was the process? And again, it's not just picking 11. There are questions around the pricing, around the benefits that go to these people, the price at which they bought the commodity, and the price at which they're selling it to the agency, Kenya National Trading Corporation, is huge amounts of money being made by individuals at the expense of taxpayers. And I don't think it is fair. And somehow we must put a stop to this. Okay. And finally, as I wind up, you know, excuses, and Honorable Kimani is my good friend and professional colleague. Let us stop giving excuses when taxpayers' money is being stolen left, right, and center. I'm done.
Okay. Dr. Khalwale, we'll explore more on that. Dr. Khalwale, coming to you. KNTC, despite having the mandate to directly procure from manufacturers of oil in Malaysia and Indonesia, and having that letter of credit, managed to get companies in order to bring that. And then they brought in at $20, about 2,000 Kenya shillings. They sold to KNTC at about $26, which is 2,600 shillings. Then that plus the profit margin to the retailers plus VAT, you'll end up selling a 20-litre jerrycan of oil more than even what the local manufacturers are doing. So what's the point of KNTC bringing in oil, then selling it at a price even more than local manufacturers? The main idea as to why the cabinet gave that go-ahead was to lessen the cost of living and to sell less than what the local manufacturers are selling at. Isn't this a shoot by KNTC on its own foot?
When I think about KNTC, and listening to what you're saying, I am encouraged by the fact that I look at that institution as being a regulator. And therefore, if you wanted the institution to compete with business people in procuring this oil, then you should say it. Otherwise, what my brother Mbadi is saying is purely speculative. Newspapers are speculating. You should mind the fact that when Honorable Kuria tabled the 11 companies, he was not doing it under duress. He was tabling information in accordance with the provision of the Constitution that allows all Kenyans to have access to information under the custody of the government. So he did it because he had nothing to hide. Number three, in this country, and Mbadi was there, and myself, when we crafted the Procurement and Disposal Act, we deliberately made it very robust. So unless there is evidence by the media or any other claimant that that act was breached, including the possibility of conflict of interest, then please don't be excited by the picture of Mary Wambui. Yeah. Now, she's entitled to doing business just like you and I.
Thank you. Now, let me put the facts to you then, because you said the facts, and this is beyond the, I mean, it's an objective coverage of it. For example, KNTC, I did reach out to the Chief Executive Officer, Pamela, who wouldn't give me clear answers as to how the procurement process was done. In the final 11 list of the companies that were pre-qualified and awarded, company number 11 was non-existent in the pre-qualification list. That is the first wrongdoing. 2, why would the Kenya National Trading Corporation engage with the Multicommerce FCZ, which is a company, an offshore company registered in Dubai, and isn't recognized in the domain with the registrar of companies here in Kenya? And 3, why would KNTC give the award to companies that use proxies that share the same postal address and the same person thrice to import the same commodity, which is edible oil? Isn't that not wrongdoing?
Very good questions. But as we have said many times, not by one of us, but by many of us, you cannot fight corruption through any other mean other than using the institutions that are supposed to fight corruption. So if the things you are saying were now the position of those institutions, including DCI, including EACC, then we would be there. Otherwise, it just remains what it is. I.e.,
but that can be proven on document. Not only can be proven on document. It's in our possession. So it's just not just the media coverage of fantasizing it. It's what's on record.
When you called Pamela and introduced yourself as the media, she was not under any obligation to either defend or volunteer information. But if it is an institution that is charged with that responsibility, then she will sit there and submit evidence. We have been on these streets for many years, and we know that the only thing that stands test on the floor of the House is evidence.
And that was the evidence.
The only thing that stands the test in court is evidence.
Well, that is the evidence presented yesterday, and I can tell you authoritatively, these are documents in our opposition and clearly show the breach of the procurement laws in the country, favoritism, tenders for friends, and how clearly the taxpayers' money is involved. Therefore, now the ball is in the court of the other agencies and institutions in the country that ought to be investigating further, now that the Senate, following the Marsabit County Senator Mohammed Chute's call to the Speaker yesterday that it needs an inquiry by the entire House. Let's now turn our attention after the break here on the broadcast, honorable members, to tighten your belts as MPs endorse 16% VAT on fuel. The paper says on page number 4, and we'll be discussing the increment from the current 8 to 16%, which yesterday was passed by the National Assembly. Speaker Moses Wetangula barred any changes to Clause 28, which increases VAT on petroleum products. We'll be discussing that more here on the broadcast. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. More after the break in the next 1 hour here on the broadcast. Stay tuned.